The Book of Chronicles is one of the last texts in the Old Testament, and it is notoriously ignored. The moment you open it, you hit a wall. 9 relentless chapters of family trees. To extract any actual meaning from this text, we have to stop treating these records as a dry appendix to the Book of Kings, or a prequel to Ezra and Nehemiah. We have to pull out of the distant biblical past and anchor ourselves in the author's actual present. It is the year 400 BC, in the chaotic twilight of the Persian Empire. The author isn't writing from a seat of power. He lives in Yehud, a tiny, deeply marginalized Persian vassal state. What he is writing is a chronicon. This is a highly specific, comprehensive style of history writing that mathematically traces human society from its origins all the way down to the author's present day. This chronicon addresses the vacuum left by the exile. It examines what remains of Israel now that the political nation-state is gone. These genealogies function as a precise survival mechanism. They allowed a trapped population to anchor their identity in a lineage the empire didn't recognize. If you open a modern Bible, Ezra and Nehemiah sits immediately after Chronicles. They are placed together because they share the exact same transitional text, the 539 BC Decree of Cyrus, which authorized the restoration of the Jerusalem Temple. Scholars assumed this decree proved the books were a single composition. That assumption came from 1st Esdras, a Greek text artificially stitching Josiah's story into Ezra. But the original Hebrew canon never combined them, keeping the text distinctly separate on the historical timeline. Ezra, Nehemiah, and Chronicles tell entirely different stories, driven by completely different historiographical goals. Chronicles is highly specific. It was written exclusively to address the worshiping community localized around the city of Jerusalem. By reading them as a single running narrative, older scholarship completely obscured the chronicler's distinct standalone objective. We can date this objective accurately using internal evidence. In the 3rd chapter, the genealogies list at least 6 generations following the Jewish leader Zerubbabel, who governed around 522 BC. Using an actual human biological generation of 20 years, rather than a symbolic 40-year biblical generation, places the writing firmly around 400 BC. This map shows the physical boundaries of the audience's world during the Persian occupation. It is a severely constrained space. The province stretches only as far west as Gerar, and its eastern edge halts abruptly at En-Gedi. The landscape of the Dead Sea serves as an unyielding natural barrier. Politically, this territory is not a triumphant restoration of the Old Kingdom of Judah. To the Persian Empire, Yehud serves a single practical function. It is a manufactured military buffer state, positioned to absorb and slow down invasions coming up from Egypt. And locally, the threat is immediate. Yehud is completely surrounded by adversarial rival states, Samaria to the north, Ammon and Moab to the east, and Idumea to the south. The people living inside these borders exist in a state of profound psychological tension, marginalized and entirely dependent on Persian imperial rule. Chronicles is not a victory lap of a sovereign nation. It is a strictly engineered historical argument designed to convince a tiny, trapped population spanning from Joshua through 2 Kings. But when you compare the chronicler's quotes to the Book of Kings in a modern Bible, the wording and chronologies often contradict each other. For centuries, scholars measured these differences against the Masoretic text, the standardized Hebrew manuscript that served as our sole historical baseline. Because his version didn't match the Masoretic text, the prevailing assumption was cynical. Scholars believed the chronicler was deliberately altering the history to force it to align with his own theology. That cynical assumption collapsed entirely after a major archaeological discovery in 1948 in the Judean desert. The caves at Qumran yielded the Dead Sea Scrolls, which contained pre-Masoretic, variant editions of the Book of Kings. When researchers deciphered these fragments, they found that the chronicler's supposed deviations matched these older scrolls perfectly. The chronicler was not fabricating data. He was extraordinarily faithful to his sources, refusing to deviate from the written records he possessed. The historical books went through multiple rolling editions over centuries. The chronicler was simply utilizing an older, highly accurate version of the text. He wasn't rewriting history. He was carefully curating the most accurate data available to reveal the underlying reality of Yahweh's kingdom. The chronicler operates as an elite, rigorous historian. Understanding his precise use of ancient data is an absolute prerequisite for grasping the theological point he is preparing to make. The Persian Empire looks at the residents of Yehud and sees an expendable military buffer. The chronicler looks at that same population and sees the sole heirs to a cosmic promise. The central pillar of his history is the promise God made to King David regarding an eternal throne. Yet the brutal, undeniable geopolitical truth is that the political nation-state of Israel and Judah died entirely with the Babylonian exile. That death was complete. Israel would not exist as a sovereign political state again for over 2,000 years, until the 20th century. Since the physical nation-state is gone, the chronicler pivots. He relocates their identity to the localized worshiping community and the restored temple in Jerusalem. This results in the invention of the Kingdom of Yahweh, a kingdom defined strictly by promise and worship, independent of drawn borders or Persian rulers. This refined concept ripples forward into the New Testament. When Jesus speaks of the Kingdom of God, or Paul defines Israel in Romans, they aren't referring to a dead political state. They use the exact theological framework engineered by the chronicler. Chronicles provides the intellectual bridge that kept the concept of Israel alive through imperial subjugation. It established the foundational theology that the New Testament authors would later rely on.